From the mid-18th century, Barings Bank was a symbol of the British financial system. Yet, in February 1995, this centuries-old institution collapsed almost overnight.
After all, the royal family were account holders. The Prince of Wales Trust, the Queen's Silver Jubilee Trust, the Baptist Church, the National Arts Collection Fund, all had money at Barings. So where had it gone?
In fact, it was once considered as the sixth great European power, after France, Russia, England, and Austria. But one rogue trader was enough to bring it to its knees. This is the story of how unchecked ambition, weak oversight, and systemic failures led to one of the most infamous disasters in banking history. This is the story of Nick Leeson and the fall of the Barings Bank. Nick Leeson wasn't born into privilege. Raised in Watford, England, he was the son of a plasterer and a nurse. Academically, he was unremarkable, even failing mathematics at school. And perhaps that could be the reason for his mischievous calculations. But anyway, Leeson began his career as a clerk at Coutts, then moved to Morgan Stanley, where he learned the basics of futures and options tradings. But he soon left Morgan Stanley, believing his superiors didn't agree with his demand to place him in trading floor. In his book, he wrote, "My boss refused me to go. He told me I would have to stay in the settlement division for 3 months. That afternoon, I resigned from Morgan Stanley." So, in 1989, Leeson joined Barings and quickly rose through the ranks. By 1992, he was sent to Singapore to help establish Barings operations on the Singapore International Monetary Exchange. There, he was given extraordinary responsibility. Not only was he in charge of trading, but he also oversaw the settlement and accounting functions. This dual role was highly unusual and dangerous, as it allowed him to both make trades and record them, effectively policing himself. Perhaps this was the beginning of the fall. Chapter 2. The Fraud. Barings' strategy in Asia was supposed to be low risk. Leeson was tasked with arbitrage trading, which means he was responsible for buying and selling Nikkei 225 futures contracts on both the Osaka Securities Exchange in Japan and Simex in Singapore to exploit any price discrepancies between the two markets. In theory, this was a cash-neutral business, generating small but steady profits. But, like all ambitious traders, Leeson soon began to stray from this conservative mandate. He started making speculative bets, wagering that the Nikkei index would rise.
It's where I wanted to get to. Success was very important to me, and that's where I wanted to be at.
When some of these bets went wrong, he faced mounting losses. But rather than reporting them, he concealed them using a secret account named as 88888, originally meant for errors. Through this new error account, Leeson hid his losses from London. The number 8 is considered lucky in East Asia, but for Barings, it turned out to be the most unfortunate number of all. Nick would transfer losing trades into the 88888 account and report only the profitable trades to headquarters. This created the illusion of consistent success, prompting Barings to send more capital to Singapore to support what they believed were lucrative positions.
If they can't see it after 2 days, then who says they're going to see it after 200 days, 500 days, 1,000 days? You don't get confident, but you're getting away with it.
By the end of 1992, he had lost £2 million. By 1993, around 23 million. And by 1994, 88888 was £208 million down. Leeson's deception grew even more elaborate. He forged documents, manipulated internal records, and even created fictitious trades. As the losses mounted, he doubled down, taking ever larger positions in a desperate attempt to win back the money and cover up the growing hole. But how could one trader bring down a centuries-old bank? There are multiple answers for this question. First, there was a dangerous lack of oversight. Leeson was controlling both trading and settlement accounts.
If I phone Treasury and I ask them for £50 million or $50 million or $100 million, if they paid that over to me,
You know, that was the end of the transaction.
Second, Barings' management in London was complacent. They were dazzled by the apparent profits coming from Singapore and failed to ask tough questions. Third, the bank's auditors and compliance staff were ill-equipped to understand the complex world of derivatives trading. Some senior executives admitted later that they had little idea how the modern financial system worked, making them easy prey for Leeson's manipulation. The culture of Barings was one of trust and tradition, not skepticism and verification. As long as profits rolled in, oversight was lax. Leeson himself later remarked, "It was a bizarre structure, and one which allowed me to run my own show without anyone interfering." By early 1995, Leeson's losses had grown to catastrophic levels. Now, he was just hoping for a miracle. But it only got worse when a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck Kobe, Japan. For Japan, it was a national tragedy. But for Nick, it was a financial disaster. He had been betting that Nikkei would rise, but after the earthquake, the index dropped sharply. Facing losses he could never recover, Leeson panicked. He tried to recoup by making even larger bets, but the market moved further against him. By February, the losses in the 88888 account had reached $827 million, which was more than twice Barings' available trading capital. On February 23rd, Leeson left a note on his desk which said, "I'm sorry," and fled Singapore with his wife. Barings' London office was soon informed of his disappearance. When all efforts to contact him failed, they discovered account 88888, and finally, the scale of the disaster became clear. Barings didn't have enough funds to cover the losses. The Bank of England tried to rescue it, but no buyer was willing to assume the enormous liabilities. As a result, Barings Bank was declared insolvent. The collapse of Barings sent shockwaves through the financial world. The United Kingdom's oldest merchant bank had been destroyed by the actions of a single trader. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. The bank's assets were sold to the Dutch ING Group for the symbolic sum of £1, and ING assumed all of Barings' liabilities, forming ING Barings. After all this destruction, Nick Leeson was on the run, traveling through Malaysia, Thailand, and finally Germany. He was arrested in Frankfurt and extradited to Singapore, where he pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. He was sentenced to 6.5 years in Changi prison. While in prison, Leeson was diagnosed with colon cancer, but he survived and was released in 1999 for good behavior and health reasons. He later wrote his autobiography, named Rogue Trader, describing his actions and their consequences. The book was adapted into a film starring Ewan McGregor, and the story became the subject of documentaries and case studies in risk management. Nick Leeson's life after Barings has been a mix of notoriety and reinvention. After his release from prison, he survived cancer and became a public speaker, sharing his story as a cautionary tale in the financial world. He's worked as a private investigator and has been a frequent commentator on risk management and ethics in finance.
You know, the markets are in turmoil at the moment, and to me it comes down to a very simple thing, and that's the degree of understanding. The management of the bank.
The Barings name, though tarnished, lives on in an investment management. ING Barings was eventually absorbed by ABN AMRO, and the Barings brand is now owned by Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company. Many of the executives involved in the scandal left the financial industry. Even Peter Baring, the last chairman of Barings Bank, promised never to work in the City of London again. Nick Leeson's story isn't just a cautionary tale about one man's deception. It's a reminder of what happens when profit is placed above oversight. Barings Bank survived world wars, royal scandals, and centuries of change. But it couldn't survive a lack of internal controls and one man's desperate gamble. In his book, he's famously mentioned that, "I was astonished nobody stopped me. People in London should have known I was making numbers." And perhaps that led to the fall of Barings Bank. So, what do you think? Is Nick Leeson a criminal mastermind, a product of a broken system, or maybe both? Let us know in the comments. And if you think this was one of the most shocking stories of financial fraud, don't miss our previous video. Discover how a couple executed a crypto heist worth $4.5 billion. See you in the next video.